Video number 224. What is a fraction? Well, a fraction is a division problem describing a portion of a whole number. Here's the official definition of fraction. It's a divided by b equals a over b. And, well, this should not say equals. This should say comma or something else. It should just say, like, maybe semicolon. B cannot equal 0, and the GCF between a and b has to equal 1. This is the what? Definition of a fraction. So therefore, anything that doesn't fit this mold is not considered a fraction. So, for example, if the denominator is 0, not a fraction. If the GCF between a and b is not 1, not a fraction. Okay, here's the first example. 2 divided by 5, we would call that 2/5. Okay, this is just 2 out of 5, 2/5. Now the rest of this is just converting it to a percent, just to indicate what's happening here. 2 out of 5 is the same thing as 4 out of 10, which is the same thing as 4/10. 4/10 with the decimal place, which is the same thing as 40/100ths. And of course, anything out of 100 is a percent, so that's why we have 40%. The next example, perhaps you're playing basketball, you're shooting free throws. You hit 17 out of 20 free throws. So then what we would use is we would say, okay, 17 out of 20, so you made 17 free throws out of 20 attempts. Now this is a little bit unorthodox, but it does help us get the percentage. 17 out of 20 would be like making 8.5 free throws out of 10. Now, we wouldn't make 8.5 free throws, but as for the mathematical conversion, we could definitely describe 17/20 as 8.5 out of 10. That gives us, now think about this, 8.5 tenths, TH. So therefore, you put the 8 in the tenths position. So it's really 85/100ths is the same thing as 8.5 tenths. Okay? Therefore, we have then 85%. Okay? Next, how far have we traveled if we start here and go all the way here? Now, it doesn't really matter what each of those segments represents, but let's just say this is the path we're traveling. We've gone 1, 2, 3, 4 of these little segments here. We would just indicate those as different pieces of the total. Notice how the entire journey was cut into 6 pieces. So therefore, this distance would have been 4 of those pieces. So we would describe this as being 4/6 of the way. So 4/6, 4 out of 6. Now notice here, if you wanted to, we could describe this in thirds. The first 2 is 1/3, the next 2 is the second third, the last 2 is the third third, or the third piece if you divide it up into 3 pieces. So we could say you went 1 2/3 of the way. So 4/6 would actually equal 2/3. Okay? How many feet is 36 inches? Well, we would take, obviously, the 12 inches are in 1 foot. So 36 inches divided by 12 gives us 3, so therefore we could describe 36 inches as 12 feet. Next one, how many feet is 7 inches? Well, same thing, you just do 7 out of 12. So we have 7/12 of a foot. We don't have an entire foot, otherwise we'd have 12/12. So we have 7 inches out of those 12 inches to cover 1 foot. So we would call this 7/12 of a foot. How many feet is 66 inches? Well, 66 out of 12 would give us the feet. So if you take the inches, divide by 12, that obviously gives us feet. Well, I break this up into 2 different pieces. 60/12 plus 6/12. Now, obviously, a fraction is just like an increment. So if you had 60 centimeters plus 6 centimeters, you have 66 centimeters. Okay, this time we just have 12ths. Okay, so obviously we have divided this up into feet, because if you divide by 12, you get feet. So we have 5 feet plus 6 out of 12 inches. 6 out of 12 inches foot. So 6/12 of a foot plus 5 feet gives us 5 6/12 feet, or in other words, 5.5 feet, for the same reason that we described in the previous segment, that 4/6 equals 2/3. We could say that 6/12 would be 1/2 of the way there. So 5 1/2. Next one. Here's a few interesting situations. We have 0 out of 40, 40 out of 40, and 40 out of 0. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at how we would describe these. In this case, you have nothing divided in 40 pieces, 40 divided in 40 pieces, and 40 divided in no pieces. We would end up with 0, 1, and undefined. Now, the reason this is undefined is because in the first page, the definition of a fraction says that b cannot be 0. Well, here we have b is 0, therefore undefined. Then, this is actually 30 out of 40ths. This is actually technically undefined the way it's written right now. 30 out of 40 is undefined because the greatest common factor between a and b has to be 1. Well, here, the greatest common factor between 30 and 40 is actually 10. So since we can divide by 10, we would do that. Now, here's a long explanation for how we would reduce a fraction. You see, 30 40ths could be broken up into a 3/4 plus 3/4 plus 3/4. All of those added together, 3 out of 4, 3 out of 4, 3 out of 4. So maybe the person made 30 out of 40 free throws. Now, this would definitely be a different kind of addition, so do not pay attention to this when it comes to getting common denominators. This is basically you hit 3 free throws out of 4 attempts. So if you were to add those all together, you'd end up with, now if I had all 10 of them, I'd end up with 30. Or in all 40 attempts, obviously you'd have 10 of these 4s here, so we'd end up with 40, 10 of these separate pieces. So then what we have here is this. We have a total of 10 of this, so I do 10 divided by 10, 10 over 10, times 3/4. Now this becomes 1, okay? So I guess you can temporarily use these undefined fractions. This is technically an undefined fraction, but we're going to go ahead and use it to help us reduce. So we then have 10 divided by 10 is 1, and anything times 1 is itself. So 3/4 times 1 is 3/4. And this would be the long version on how we would reduce a fraction, and that's going to be coming up in the future videos here. So this was definitely the basics, the basic concepts of what a fraction is. We'll see you in the next one.